The war had been decided before it started, or so the RAN believed. Commander stood at the head of the High War Council's tactical chamber, 7 feet of crystalline exoskeleton catching the cold blue light of the beneath him. Around him sat representatives of 6 conquered species, each one present not because their opinion mattered, but because witnessing certainty was itself a form of governance. The chamber floated in geostationary orbit above what had once been called Station, a human outpost, now a resupply depot, stripped and repurposed in 11 days. Efficiency was a religion. Begin the cultural assessment, said. The analyst, a young named bright-eyed and recently promoted, pulled the first file. Human naval engagements. Respectable tonnage, primitive propulsion, commendable aggression given their technological ceiling. The council watched without expression. Then armored ground operations, loud, fuel-dependent, emotionally driven. One of the conquered representatives, a delegate whose entire had surrendered in 72 hours, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He recognized something in the footage that the did not. He said nothing. Then found the suit footage. It had been pulled from a human military training archive, raw, unedited, dated some years before first contact. A soldier lay in an open field, broad daylight. The camera operator walked within 4 meters of the figure and nearly stepped on him before the soldier stood up, and the camera lurched backward in genuine human surprise. What had appeared to be a patch of overgrown grass and wind-bent shrubs straightened itself, raised a hand in greeting, and grinned. The soldier was wearing a suit built entirely by hand. Strips of burlap, locally gathered vegetation, dyed netting threaded with pine needles and dried moss. No power source, no optical bending array, no thermal suppression technology, just cloth and patience and the decision to look exactly like the earth he was lying on. Stared at it for 4 full seconds, an eternity by standards of emotional control, and then laughed. It was not a small sound. It rang off the chamber walls and unlocked the room. Around the table, the tension of a war briefing dissolved into something rare and genuine. Even 2 of the conquered representatives managed uncomfortable smiles, though the delegate did not. They hide, said slowly, as though tasting each word, by tying plants to their bodies. Uncertain whether to continue, continued. More footage. Snipers in forest, invisible against terrain they had spent days studying. Spotters lying motionless for 18 hours in open ground. Training manuals recovered from a human military base describing wind patterns, shadow angles, and the behavioral habits of local bird populations, not as nature study but as concealment science. One manual was handwritten. It referenced techniques passed down through oral tradition, predating the unit that compiled it by several generations. This is their stealth program, said. It wasn't quite a question. From the far end of the table, a voice answered that no one had asked for. It is older than their written language. Her name was Senior Intelligence Analyst, 38 years of field assessment, the only person in the room who had read every recovered human document rather than summarizing them. She was not young. She was not bright-eyed. She had the particular stillness of someone who had learned that being right too early was indistinguishable from being ignored. Their hunters developed these methods before agriculture, she said. Before cities, before the concept of an army existed, individual humans were practicing environmental integration as a survival mechanism. What you're looking at is not a technology gap, it is 40,000 years of refinement. She paused. Their thermal signature suppression techniques alone took us 3 days to identify because we were searching for technology. There is none, there is only knowledge. And knowledge, Commander, does not appear on a scanner. Looked at her the way he looked at most things that did not require him to act differently, briefly, and without revision. We have quantum resonance arrays that detect biological signatures through 40 meters of solid rock, he said. We have atmospheric drones that can isolate a single heartbeat in a storm. He closed the file. They have burlap. The decision was made. Eastern Europe, dense forest, fragmented human resistance, tactically ideal for demonstrating ground superiority. The orders were signed before the briefing formally ended. Did not argue further. She simply gathered her files, walked to the observation window and looked down at the blue-green arc of the planet below, at the dark smear of forest that spread across its northern face like an old stain, like something that had always been there and intended to remain. She thought of a phrase she had found in a recovered human field manual, handwritten in the margin by someone whose name was never recorded. The forest doesn't hide you, you learn to deserve it. The first soldier dropped on a Tuesday morning at 7:43 local time, between 2 pine trees that smelled of rain. No sound preceded it. No flash, no energy trail, no trajectory alarm from the squad's integrated defense array. One moment their squad leader was raising a fist to signal halt. The next, the fist had no purpose and the forest was exactly as quiet as before. The remaining soldiers froze in formation, scanners sweeping, drones lifting, the thin mechanical whine of desperate technology filling the silence where an explanation should have been. They found nothing. clean air, still trees. A woodpecker somewhere to the north, indifferent and rhythmic, as though nothing had interrupted its morning. They moved the body and kept advancing. 40 seconds later, the scanner operator dropped. Over the next 72 hours, Sector 7 became a word that field commanders said quietly and did not repeat. 41 casualties across a 15-kilometer corridor of pine forest. No attacker sighted. No biological signature isolated. Drone sweeps returned footage of moss, root systems, and the occasional startled deer, nothing else. The escalated methodically, chemical trace drones, seismic ground sensors, atmospheric biofilters tuned to human respiratory signatures. Each escalation was answered by silence. By the time the 16th casualty report reached Orbital Command, a field commander had submitted a document that contained a sentence unprecedented in 3 centuries of Dominion warfare. Enemy position, unknown. Enemy presence, confirmed. Her name was, and she had been completely still for 19 hours. She was 31 years old, third-generation hunter, born in a mountain village where winter arrived without announcement and fed only those who learned to listen. Her grandfather had called her the breath between heartbeats. Her daughter called her mama. They had no word for her at all, which was, she understood, precisely the point. Her suit had taken 3 months to build. Every attachment was local, pine needles refreshed every 48 hours, mud from the specific creek bed 50 meters east because its mineral content matched the surrounding topsoil's scent profile, netting angles calculated against the prevailing wind direction for this particular ridge at this particular season. It was not camouflage in any mechanical sense. It was an argument made to the landscape, a patient, detailed biological argument that she belonged here more than anything foreign ever could. A small bird landed on her rifle barrel, sat for 2 full minutes, ruffled its feathers once, then flew away without alarm. The forest did not know she was there, and the forest knew everything. She heard the patrol change course below her position, pulling back, reconfiguring the distant mechanical language of soldiers who had stopped advancing and started fearing. She did not feel satisfaction. She felt only the weight of the photograph pressed flat against her chest, beneath 4 layers of carefully silenced fabric. Her daughter, her mother, her village. She exhaled slowly, settled deeper into the earth. There were still hours of light left. The defoliation order came at dawn. Heard it in fragments through a cracked resistance receiver. Orbital strike, Sector 7, 40 minutes to impact. She was already moving before the transmission finished. The math was simple and she ran it without sentiment. 40 minutes, 2 kilometers to the river, survivable. Her body knew the route. Her legs made the decision her mind hadn't finished forming. Then she reached the ridge. Below her, through the thinning tree line, sat a communications relay, squat, humming, ringed by 6 ground soldiers and 3 sentinel drones in overlapping patrol patterns. She knew what it was. She knew what losing it meant for them. Without active relay confirmation, orbital protocol required strike abort. It was a 7-second window in their command architecture, a single bureaucratic breath, and it would buy the sector days. She had 31 minutes left. She looked once toward the river. Then she looked at the relay. Then she did what 40,000 years of human instinct had always quietly insisted was the only real choice. She dissolved back into the forest and got to work. It took her 11 minutes. Reviewed the drone footage personally, alone, long after the ceasefire documentation had been filed. For 1.3 seconds between 2 pine trees, a shape appeared, brown and green, and moving with the absolute, unhurried certainty of something that had never once doubted the ground beneath it. Then it was gone. Just forest, just silence. He sat with that image for a long time. The classified advisory issued to all future commanders was 6 words. It was never publicly acknowledged. It was never rescinded. Do not enter their forests alone. Somewhere below, in a village that smelled of pine smoke and early snow, a girl learned to tie her first knot.